I'm going to talk about adversarial sequence prediction. Hibbard and Legg are doing some interesting work in coming up with mathematical formalisms for defining intelligence and measuring intelligence. And this is closely related to sequence prediction. And Legg has a more recent paper on which asks, is there an elegant universal theory of prediction? And so the situation with sequence prediction is here pictured at the top. We have programs for universal Turing machines. We have two programs here, a generator and a predictor. And the generator generates an infinite binary sequence, and the predictor reads that sequence and tries to predict the next symbol. So after it read first n symbols, it tries to predict the n plus first. And we say that the predictor learns to predict the generator if it only makes a finite number of errors, that at a point in the sequence past which it's always right. And a universal predictor is a single program that can learn to predict any generator. Well, so I wanted to do kind of a takeoff on this work of Legg's. So there's a couple of issues. One is that one of the complexities, and this sequence prediction is related to intelligence, and one of the complexities for an intelligent being in our world is the presence of other intelligent beings. So in other words, you might say the woods have eyes. So we give the generator an eye so that it can see the predictions being made by the predictor, and we call it an evader. So now the evader is, before it puts out its n first symbol, it looks at the first n predictions from the predictor, and we say that the evader learns to evade if the predictor only gets a finite number right. That is, if there's a point in the sequence past which the predictor is always wrong. So you can sort of see a game between the predictor and the evader. And there's a nice symmetry between predictors and evaders. You can sort of show that for any evader can be turned into a predictor and vice versa. The rest it's a little too big for the page, if that's what you're. So a few definitions here. Well, let C be the set of all computable binary infinite sequences, that is, a set of all sequences for which there's a generator. And now F is going to be a bound on computing time. It's a function from the integers to the integers. It's increasing. And we'll let C sub F be the subset of those sequences, those binary sequences, which can be generated by generators who generate their nth symbol in computing time bounded by F of n. Then Legg in his paper concludes that no, there is no universal predictor, and he uses sort of a Gödel-like argument for that, but that the difficulty lies entirely with generators whose generation takes a lot of computing time. So F here could be anything. It could be Ackermann's function of n comma n, which grows very, very fast. And Legg's lemma 6.2 says for any F, there is a single predictor that can learn to predict all sequences in C sub F. Now, my result was to, there we go, to generalize that. I'm really having fun here.
I got it.
Okay, thanks. To generalize that lemma, and there was a slight complication in extending the proof, because now I wasn't dealing with a sequence, but I was dealing with an evader that could react to the prediction. So, there is a predictor that can learn to predict all sequences generated by E sub F, where E sub F is the evaders whose computing time is bounded by F. And similarly, there's an evader that can learn to evade all the predictors in P sub F. Of course, the evader that can learn to predict all of P sub F is not in E sub F. Basically, they work by simulating all possible opponents. So there's no way that they're going to be in the So at any rate, the game between predictors and evaders is what you could call a computational resources arms race. That is, if either side can simulate all possible opponents, then it always wins. It learns to predict or learns to evade. However, I mean, there's another caveat with all of this work, which is Seth Lloyd estimates, he's a physicist, estimates that the universe contains no more than 10 to the 90th bits and can have performed no more than 10 to the 120th operations on those bits in its history. In other words, the universe is a finite state machine. So, even for a modest f of n like 2 to the n or any growing n, f of n is eventually going to exceed the total number of computations in the history of the universe. And so this says that while there's no universal predictor, from a practical point of view, you can predict any sequences that are generated in this universe, but that, of course, that predictor can't be implemented in this universe. And I sort of thought about, well, how can I extend this theory to the situation? And it's very hard then to extend it. The nice thing about Turing machines is it's easy to prove stuff about Turing machines. It's much harder to make similar proofs in the finite state case. So instead of trying to prove something, I did some software experiments with a table lookup algorithm, playing the predictor evader game, where the table just sort of remembers game sequences, and the table length up to whatever fits in the table length. And the table length is a measure of the computing resources. And then we have an added caveat, which as a predictor and evader play the game on each round, on each symbol, whichever one wins gets a little increment in their table length, and the other one gets a little decrement in the table length. And of course, these experiments are parameterized, there's a lot of parameters, but I found that over a fairly broad range of parameters, one side gets and keeps all the resources. So that suggests that in this case, as in the theoretical case, it's a computational resources arms race, an unstable arms race. So, not being shy about drawing sweeping conclusions from modest results, we look at AI ethics. And I mean, in a way, if you look at what's happening in the US economy, there's been increasing income inequality for the last 3 decades, which corresponds roughly to what we call the information economy. So as the economy, as computational resources become more and more important in our economy, maybe we're dealing with a computational resources arms race in our economy that's leading to this. And if that's the case, then that's a serious issue for AI. I mean, obviously we have to worry about the question of AI versus humanity, but I think another question we need to worry about is the ability of AI to create an elite, some group of winners who have sort of a dominant set of computational resources at the expense of the great mass. And one very prosaic way to look at it is in a market economy, when the computers take all the jobs and nobody can get a job, the efficient market will say, well, what do we do with all these people we don't need to do jobs, And so, well, at any rate, that's my talk. I'm sure it's well under 10 minutes.